All right.
Clear a lot so that you'll have to edit.
Yeah, that's fine. I can edit it. Not a problem. All right. So now we are officially starting. So this is our little founders conversation. And we're going to start out by doing some introductions. What is your name? How did you help form ArtStart? And what was your role in the very beginning? So who would like to start?
Ken would.
Ken?
Did he just volunteer me?
Yeah, I think you've been volunteered to start.
That's how I got started in the first place. Is that they volunteered me. I got a call from someone who was organizing a group that was getting together to see whether it was feasible to open up a federal building as a culture center or art center. I didn't introduce myself yet. I'm Ken Juan, and one of the original 4 or 5. I guess I count 5. I count Lori Gosha in the original group as well, and went to a meeting. Didn't want to really be participating. I just went to get some information, and it just kind of grew from there. We had an interesting group of which Martin and Laura and Deb were amongst. There's probably initially 8 or 10 of us that that were pretty hardcore, and initially then eventually just kind of faded away, and there was just a small group of us left.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I'm Deborah Eman, one of the core team. I got a call from Lisa Kosmarski. Was it Bill Bell? Was that who the city administrator was then?
Yeah, Bill Bell. Uh-huh.
He was involved in this idea of this art center in this space. And so Lisa Kosmarski said, and in fact, she knew me from News of the North. I was on the board of News of the North. That's how she had heard about me. And so she called me and said, hey, do you want to come? I think she was on that board as well, is what happened. And I went sure, and then I turned to Laura and said, hey, do you want to come? So that's how we came to that first meeting. And again, really just coming with curiosity, not thinking anything of it at all. And it quickly transpired where we put a proposal together, right? And the big transformative moment came when our proposal was approved
By the city council.
By the city council for this downtown arts center. And so we all looked at each other and went, oh, woo. And then oh, now we have to do it. so we quickly figured out how that would go down.
And that's when people dropped out, frankly.
Yeah.
We looked at each other across that table after it approved, and we were like, uh-oh. We were really like, we couldn't walk away. The people that couldn't walk away were this core team, And I'm Laura Eman, my sister, my brother-in-law, I'm going to call you my brother. Yeah. No, I'm going to call you a brother too, Ken. So
I've already joined the family, so yeah.
Exactly. So we started putting a plan together, and what it involved was we went around and interviewed people at different art centers. At the Leiyaki, we met with Leiyaki. We met with, was it New Dimensions Gallery? Yep. And at the Marshfield Clinic. And we started, we had a lot of questions, and it was very helpful. Like, what was important? What do how did you start? What do you think is important? What do you think is not important? Virtually every one of them said, don't have a gift shop. They said it was just too much trouble. So that's what we started with. And then, Judy Linder, who was in it from the beginning as well, she and I led the the event that we had a prom. Fundraising prom. And that came out of a huge community meeting when we started getting feedback from the community that they wanted this. people were very enthusiastic. And so the prom was our initial fundraiser for renovating the building mostly.
Yep. Okay, Martin.
Yeah, well, I got into it a little bit later because I wasn't there for the first meeting. And then Deb said, let's go to this meeting, which was where it all started to happen. And it was an exciting process. You know, just when we got to the point where we're actually doing something, we had the freedom to do absolutely anything because we were let loose on a building. And Ken and I made a really good job of pulling everything out. We had some help from Deb and Dan and Bill, but we gutted the building and then rebuilt it and got it together in various stages, and it was just a great experience. That was the best fun I've ever had, I think.
It was a great endeavor because that first fundraiser, that prom, really indicated support from the community with the funds we raised to be able to move forward to start the renovation. So that was a huge indicator to us how important this was. And sitting next to that, like what really got this core digging in deep, I think, was, yes, we decided pretty quickly that exhibitions were going to be our kind of key thing, and settled pretty quickly on how transformative it would be to bring things you wouldn't normally see up to the North Woods, right? So that was really inspired us. But the other thing that really got us excited was this idea of making a difference in our downtown community. So, and I at that time was on the board, not on the board, I'm sorry. I was on one of the committees for the Main Street, renovating our downtown, where Sue Bessert was heading at that stage. She was the executive director. And so that really was a nice synergy, right? Like making a difference in our downtown. So those key things, bringing these incredible exhibitions to Rhinelander and then really making a difference to our downtown, really tied our team into digging to do all the work that needed to be done. To like Martin and I at one stage were getting up, every morning at 5, coming in and laying floors for a couple of hours before I went to work. And then Ken would come in and continue, and it was all just like hands on deck. Laura and Judy were doing extraordinary things with events, and we kind of went on from there. And then one other big milestone was, I remember one key, very early meeting, we were all sitting in the Curran building in the basement. And I remember we were trying to figure out who would be president. And Ken said, I think Deborah should. And I looked at him, I said, I'll be vice president if you're president. And Ken said, I think I should be vice president. And I just kept saying, I'll be vice president if you're president, until he finally agreed. I think it was about a half a dozen exchanges until he graciously agreed to do that, to which we are eternally grateful.
Well, one of the key things was getting a hold of the building, because it was a federal building, and it had to be coordinated through the city. The building, could only be turned over to a city to be used as a public institution, an arts center or some other public not-for-profit use. And that's where Lori Gosha came in. Lori was an architect. She was, I don't know if she was a partner or close to being a partner of a firm in Madison, but had an outpost here in Rhinelander. And she took responsibility for working with the federal government, the state, and the city, which took a year's time, pulling all that together in order to get the building transferred over. A stack of documents. You couldn't believe how, part of the difficulty was that at that time it was considered that the building was a historic building, and therefore had to go through all of the, rigmarole of what you could do, what you couldn't do, what you had to retain, documenting it all, getting all that put together. After a year, we were able to, to finally get the building, and that's when we really started doing the renovations. We couldn't do any renovations, and until it was actually turned over to the city, and we had a lease with the city. And fortunately, we were able to negotiate an evergreen lease, so we have a lease with the city that's perpetual. As long as we maintain the building, we are able to use it. So I think even before we had the building, though, the initial prom that we had, or the initial opening, we opened it up to the public, and the building was a wreck. I mean, it was just in disarray. Stains on the floor, water stains on the ceiling, and we were really afraid that people would come in and take a look at it and say, "My God, what are you people doing? This place is a wreck." So it was Martin's idea to paint the walls pink, so that nobody would notice the floors and the ceiling. Yeah. He also brought in a projector and projected paintings, the Mona Lisa, Edward Munch's Scream, others that he copied onto the wall, so that we had paintings, on the wall, on these pink walls. And people came in and they thought it was terrific. Nobody said a word about the floor or the ceiling, and that was the public's first exposure to the building. Yeah.
There was a lovely woman at the Rhine that was in the Rhinelander Women's Club. And was it you, Deb, that was giving a talk? And she said she was very excited to go and see the Mona Lisa at the art center, because that had been projected on the wall, and Deb had to explain to her that wasn't going to happen. I like to turn to, while all that was going on, we actually held our first few exhibitions. And we would bring out the work every day and then lock it up at night, because we did not have the galleries. And, some of our first exhibitions were just extraordinary, I think. I mean, we started out with, I believe, 5-6 artists who had been in the Wisconsin Triennial at MMOCA, the Madison Museum of Contemporary Art, and, had graciously agreed to show their work. And our second exhibition was The Impact of Service, and it was a veterans exhibition, veteran artists. And that went along with a whole day of veterans activities and talks and everything. So we really started out, with a bang. And I think the key to how creative we were able to act out our kind of dreams and fantasies there, the core of that was the Spotted Cow meeting. And the Spotted Cow meeting, well, Deb, you were describing that really well last night.
Was I?
Yeah.
I wish I could think of it now. Well, it was an environment where we could relax, be creative, and we were really open and curious to how we could make all of this happen, right? So we were very willing to experiment, try things out, whether it was events or who we could try and get to exhibit with us. And it was that environment, and more came to join us, right? With those like Judy and Patty eventually were very much a part of those, and others came in and out. But what it did, because we had first tried to set up committees, and we quickly discovered that wasn't going to work. And when we pivoted and formed this executive team, what we were able to do was focus on what folks could do that were specific tasks. And that's when really people started coming and really helping and volunteering, and Laura was key in coordinating that piece of things. But we were really just open. Like the perfect thing is when what was it called? The Winter's Toll? We had to, what did we have to fix in the building? Something happened because of that really awful winter. And we did a Winter's Toll campaign. And it worked. We were just willing, and all of that happened over Spotted Cow, just ideas of who we could get or what events we could do. Bling probably came out of that as well. All of those things came out of the spirit of just that just an environment where we could relax and feel good and really explore possibilities.
I just want to add one more thing to that. Spotted Cow is a beer, and it took place in bars around Rhinelander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of our executive meetings were held in bars, so.
It's very northern Wisconsin and most appropriate.
And the only way you could get me there.
Happily.
Yeah,
Right?
happily, yeah. Or keep me there.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Well, then it'd be-
whose original idea was Art Start then? Or was it kind of like a mutual idea, or did it come out of some other organization's needs downtown, or I guess?
Oh, Deb thinks it's hers. Laura says it was hers. I thought it was me.
I don't think it is.
No, I'm just,
Are you talking about the name or the idea?
No, just the idea. Like, just where did it come from originally? Like, who thought of it? Who said we need this? Like, was it any one person, or was it just a group of people that identified it from other things happening in the community?
Well, it was in the air, you know.
Others thought we should have an art something, right? Dan Kuzlik was key in that, Ken, remember, and Bill Bell was key in that. But what that art something was,
Yeah, there had been downtown Rhinelander, Sue and downtown Rhinelander had organized an ideation session where people from the community got together and tried to figure out what to do with the downtown. And out of that meeting, the top thing that people wanted was some sort of an art center or culture center downtown. That was 5 years before the building became available. So it was in the air. People, expressed their interest in wanting it, but it wasn't possible because there wasn't a building, there wasn't an organization, so nothing really happened until the feds came forward and said, we want to give this building to the city, and of course the city didn't want it. So we had to convince the city of it. But then that's when things started to happen. So it was no one person's idea, I don't think. It was really, a group that formed around an idea that was already out there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the way you guys remember it?
Yep, absolutely.
yeah.
Right?
Bill Bell and Dan Kuzlik, when the building came to be open, were kind of the early, like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to now use this building for that idea, right?
It was a perfect building. I mean, it was downtown. It was the right size, not too big, not too small. It just required a lot of work. And I remember at the very first meeting when we invited the public, even before we invited them into the building, when we had the meeting in the current building, someone asked, well, how much money do you think it would take to get this going? And I hadn't really given it a whole lot of thought, but then I said, well, initially 35 or 40,000. And I remember Linda Davidson jumped up and said, well, we should be able to do that. And Mel, her husband, said, well, no, wait a minute. Let's not get too excited here.
Yeah, Ken's right. The fundraising, an art center, an arts and cultural center, the caliber of Art Start, where it brings in really world-class exhibitions and then has all kinds of local, concerts and kids art classes and authors readings and films. I would say that the vast majority of art centers start off with some kind of endowment or some kind of big contribution. We were very grassroots. We raised it from the ground up. And I think that's pretty unique in Wisconsin, as far as I can tell. At one point, I did a little research on it and, to find out how people got their funding. So it was very, very grassroots.
It was, and we were willing to work with a building that wasn't completely renovated to get the public excited about having this art center. So our first exhibitions were with what we could do, right, without professionals, to clean up the space with the computer floor, the raised computer floor. We were all in there pulling that stuff out and getting rooms ready as best we could for our first few exhibitions. And that really brought in public enthusiasm, and so our fundraising events were able to be more successful, I truly believe, because we didn't wait, right? We just did it, and we found artists who were so excited about what we were doing and really supported it.
We always tried to say yes. I mean, we really made a commitment to saying yes to different ideas about, oh, I'd like to show the Spanish films, or I'd like to do this. And we really, you know, we really welcome that.
Yeah. And we found a way to do it without overcommitting. We never overcommitted ourselves financially. We always did what we had money to do, and we had the money first before we did things. We didn't, you know, there was nothing on a wish and a prayer. So we never overcommitted, and that continues to today.
Yeah. And we also came up with, you know, I don't know, to me, Rhinelander is not that much of a ticket buying town. So for all our concerts, films, and everything we had, it was donations at the door, which I think worked very well at that point. Somebody might throw in a 20, somebody might throw in $1, you know, so.
And then being able to partner with WXPR, you know, grew like our music events, which were incredible. So, you know, more people were coming in. We were able to rent parts of the building, so that supported our income. That Ken very much let that happen.
Yay, that's what I wanted to say. Ken, we had a brilliant idea of renting out office space and dance floor space.
Yeah, and it paid for our utilities, you know, at a crucial time, really, when, you know, that would have been a significant amount of what we were fundraising.
Frankly, I don't know whether we could have done it had we not had that income.
A lot harder.
Especially with Karen Cook and, you know, and her dance studio coming in and, you know, and providing a significant rental income to, you know, to have her studio there. The rental income was really key in the beginning.
And a big transition point for us was when the group spearheaded the plan to go out into the business community to convince them to invest whatever amount per business to hire our first employee. So that was a real transition point for us as well.
Yeah, Melinda, yeah.
So when did I remember coming in when we had pink walls. My husband and I wandered in. His old boss at the DNR had a wife who did stained glass work, and I remember there was like a little artist show in, I think it was like this office space even, or it was tucked over in this area. But I remember coming in and seeing the projection and stuff like that. But when did the Must See come in? Or when did we start producing the Must See brochure?
Gosh, I think our first one was 2013. If I think back to my pile that I I'm pretty sure the first one was 2013. And so that idea was we could get some sponsorship, right? And it just really coalesced, this idea of, you know, we were professional. Everything we did, you know, the signage, the banners, those sorts of things, we wanted to be in parallel with the great artists we were getting and the wonderful things we were doing with the building. So it was really bringing all of that together.
Yeah, the board of directors was real helpful in going to businesses and everything. And Martin and Deb were, they were hugely instrumental in what Deb mentioned, design, because they're professional designers, graphic designers. And so the look of the signage in the exhibitions, like I said, the banners, the must-see design, all of that was just...
And the website.
And the website, exactly. was highly professional. I mean, we're a class act, you know. We started up from almost day one as a class act in that regard. And that points to the exhibitions, to me, which are the keystone and the most fun I've ever had. That would be on my deathbed. So proud of the exhibitions we were able to bring in. And I'm so amazed at the generosity of artists that, I mean.
And galleries who loaned their,
yes,
you know, curated exhibitions and things like that.
Right, and many times we had individual artists or groups of artists, but we also curated our own shows, like The Impact of Service. We did a folk story, which was folk art from just a wide variety of folk art. We did an exhibition called Animal Dreams, which reached everywhere. It was a great exhibition. And Ken and Martin, when he was in Rhinelander, bless their hearts, hung every dang one of them. Some harder than others, right, Ken? You should speak to that, because that was huge. You too have an eye that is amazing for hanging art.
Well, it's fun, and I always considered the installations and hanging the art a work of art in itself. You know, so the artwork was just another element to use. So Martin and I created our own artwork every exhibition, using other people's art. That's the way I approached it.
Well, I think the interesting thing was we pretty much agreed on every decision we made.
Yeah, pretty much so. We never had any major disagreements outside of, well, I think that one should go over here and that one should go over here, and then we'd shake our heads and say, yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, it was a lot of fun putting it together.
Building what are they called? Those little walls, petition.
Yeah.
They were not a petition, but a partition.
Yes.
They really helped in that gallery to transform how the work could be more art in itself, the way it was hung, right?
It made the space much more flexible. We could do.
Did the same thing in the other gallery, right?
Yeah.
It was really, toward the whole different dimension of how things could be hung.
I think we were very, very lucky in this group. We had 3 artists. Ken is an artist, Martin is an artist, Deb is an artist. So when it came to I would do the research for the most part, and I would send them artists, and then there was like the thumbs up and the thumbs down, and I took care of all the little details, and I think I have an eye. I don't have an artist eye, but I'm not bad at winnowing down. But this team, in terms of how we were able to get some of these artists, famous artists, was amazing. So the team that would look at what I would send them.
Well, you had ideas too. You came up with all kinds of great ideas, and then were able to to execute by going out and convincing these artists to loan work to Rhinelander, to an organization that nobody had ever heard of before. And
pick it up.
Yeah. So it was, for the artists, it was a leap of faith as well. But once we had a few really good exhibitions, then we had, something to build on. And I remember, was it the first exhibition? Who was it? Down in Madison from the university.
Celine?
No, that was
T.L. Celine, I think, was the first professor from the university who had a solo exhibition. Well, once and T.L. was really, really well known, and once he agreed to show up here, then we had his and credentials to lure in other artists. So it was, people would call him, artists would call him and say, hey, what is it with this group up there? And he would tell them, oh yeah, they're really fine. They're a good organization. So that really helped.
To send to artists to lure them in, absolutely we did that, Ken. It was like, oh, we've had this, and these galleries have lent us work. You're just in a long line of,
Yeah, well, I mean, we were able to get loans from museums in Minneapolis and in Marshfield and Laoki.
Russian Museum, yeah.
It was quite a thing.
Yeah. Pretty, yeah.
And we should speak to events a little bit, like Judy and Patty and Igor and all the incredible work that went behind.
Well, Judy, it was the mama of Bling, which was a dinner, auction, fashion show. Did we do it for about 4 or 5 years? And it was highly successful and a lot of work. People who could care less about the art gallery, or art, I should say, came to Bling.
Yeah.
The proms, Ashley, what's happening right now with the holiday, fair, right? I forgot, is still going on with artists and local crafters and so forth, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Ashley can speak to that, but yeah, holiday market's still going on. Things, yeah.
We've had several film festivals that people have just stepped up because they have an interest in it. Gosh, a bunch of authors, reading from their work. Yeah, sometimes I just for fun look at my ArtStart folder and just go, damn, we're good.
I want to talk a little bit about collaboration because that was early on really important in allowing us to grow and is a growth center right now. Our first collaboration was with WXPR. I mean, they worked with us and we worked with them in putting on concerts and on the air things and sharing advertising and doing all sorts of collaborations. So and they had a way of reaching the community that we did not. So it was really beneficial for us, and it was beneficial for them because we had an exhibition space that they didn't have. So it was mutually useful to both organizations. And over the years we've really kind of branched out in those collaborations, which has allowed us to kind of move from the building, which the building is still very important. The exhibitions, are keystone, but it's allowed us to really branch out into the community more, which is what we really wanted to do from day one, is to have an impact on a positive impact on the community. And those collaborations with WXPR, the Rhinelander Chamber,
School of the Arts.
Yeah. All these organizations. Yeah. Nicolay College now.
Yeah, WXPR, it was public radio was key at the beginning because of the advertising. The underwriting that they allowed us to do to get events out and to attract people. And I worked at WXPR for 10 years, and I'm coming to ArtStart and trying to raise money, and I went, gosh, it's so easy at the radio station. If only we had a radio station.
So who came up with the name ArtStart?
I think it's Laura.
Yeah, it's one of those three. I had nothing to do with it.
It was a working title. It was a working title, and it said it. It was fun to say ArtStart, and we were starting it. And then that was what the community came to know us as. We definitely didn't want something like the Rhinelander Area Arts and Cultural Center, or RAC for short. So
yeah, that didn't sit well at a Spotted Cow meeting, I can tell you. when we made the acronym RAC, we thought, okay, we can do better than this.
And it was just, it started out as a working title, because you got to call us something that's not boring.
That's right. And then that name became known, and it didn't make sense to change it unless someone was going to put in that large sum of money to have their name attached to the building, which we hope, right? And then we're happy to pass on ArtStart to whoever.
It may still happen. It may still happen.
Your mouth to God's ear.
I hope so.
Yeah. And of course, we needed a name to incorporate under, and it was there. So that's what we used to incorporate, and we've been Art Start ever since.
Art wanted to name it Art Cake.
It's very, actually, Art Start is to what it has become. So.
What was the question, Ash?
I said it's very fitting. The name is very fitting to what we have become. It makes sense.
Does.
On both ends, Art Start because we were starting something, and then art is just starting something all around the community, just starting so many good things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought for years that we should change it because it was kind of a startup name. It kind of referenced an organization that was just starting, but I think it's bigger than that now. I think it's now an organization that starts things themselves. So I think I'm changing my mind in terms of whether the name should be changed. I mean, we're known by that name, and it still makes sense.
Finally.
Yeah. Unless we get that big donor, right? And then it totally makes sense to,
If they want to change it.
if they want to change it. Yeah. Absolutely be thrilled to bits.
So tell me about the point where, well, let's back up a little bit. So you talked a little bit about building renovations that you did, but who, other than Ken and Martin and Deb and Laura and Judy, were involved in that process? Were there, Martin, you mentioned a couple names, a couple first names, but I don't know them by their first names, I guess.
Jeff Barkas, plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
Marcia was a great volunteer for Art Start. Bill Kingsbury, Dan Boardman, Ken, better.
Well, those were the key people. Jeff Barkas donated, all of his time, to put in the downstairs bathroom. As part of being able to get a certificate of occupancy, we had to have another bathroom on the main floor, which there wasn't one at that point in time. And it had to be handicap accessible. I mean, we had the little, toilet in the closet, but, that was certainly not handicap accessible. So, and Jeff came in with his buddies and, did all the plumbing and, donated their time and got some of his, companies that he worked with to donate, materials as well. So that was a key thing. But Dan Boardman and Bill Kingsbury and Martin and myself, we put in the bulk of the hours doing demolition. Deb really helped a lot in terms of reconstruction, but she wasn't around much for demolition.
Computer floor. I played a key part in pulling up that raised floor. But
Yeah.
Filled up 6 dumpsters full of junk out of the building. You couldn't believe how much material there was that got removed.
Yeah, those are the big 30-yard dumpsters that we filled up and hauled out. So yeah, those were the 4. There may have been a few other people who came in, occasionally to lend a hand, but Dan Boardman and Bill Kingsbury, and Dan Boardman was really great. Dan had just retired, from the DNR, and I'd ask him, to get involved as a volunteer, and he said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to spend a year. And after about 9 months, I guess I asked him again. So then he said, okay, well, he'd come in and do some things, but he said famously to me, he said, but don't ask me to think. He said, I don't want to make any decisions. Just tell me what to do, And boy, was that good, because I really did. I gave him some really dirty jobs, and he did them.
right, he would just do that,
Yeah, the landscaping, Ken, there were people involved in that too. to help
Yeah, that was Kiwanis primarily.
Yeah. But then Boardman would mow the lawn as well as, doing bits.
Yeah.
shovel. Oh my gosh, the shoveling ash.
Yeah.
Oh, we got some folks over at, oh gosh, this is my brain. I'm not in Rhinelander, so I'm not there.
Is it
The,
NAP? NAP?
Yeah.
NAP, yeah.
Alliance
But it was like paying it to shovel and paid them to shovel, folks to shovel, but it was like, oh, you had to be on it. It's like, oh, there's some snow and how much and everything. So that was part of my job, was to figure out if it needed to be shoveled or not. And if for some reason it didn't happen, I go shovel. Ken, you've shoveled. I think we've all shoveled.
Yep.
Yeah, we did everything. I mean, seriously, it's when I looked, I kept my notebooks, of just like the meetings and stuff, and my lists. I always make lists every week of what to-do lists, and I still have some of those, and I'm just like, yeah, it was everything from just taking out the garbage to really, working, shall we say, definitely with pretty high-end artists and so forth. So, and then Ken was always working with the city, and there was, Ken, you were instrumental in some funding we got from the city once we got ourselves started. Once we showed, that we could do this.
Yeah, Ken was also instrumental in maintaining the building and being kind of the day-to-day contact until we were able to get our first employee, Melinda, and eventually you. And now, is it Tracy, I believe? So Ken was so key in that day-to-day running. So we couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, I was retired and I lived 5 minutes from the building, so it was easy for me to run back and forth.
Still a lot of work.
Yeah, you can call it that. It was enjoyable. I still enjoy it. I mean, I've shed a lot of responsibilities now, to staff and to other board members, but I still watch the building. I'm still there almost every day, making sure the boiler's running. Just things like that, and nobody else wants to get near that boiler. So I've got a job for life there.
You know it well after all these years, Ken.
Oh, I know it. In that winter when everything went wrong, and we did the Winter's Toll campaign. That was, we did a couple of capital campaigns.
Yeah,
maybe three. Yeah.
Campaign.
Yeah.
We did a Blue Moon campaign.
Yeah. The Blue Moon. That was our first one, I think.
Yeah. Got any other questions for us, Ash?
Well, so you talked a little bit, Deb, about when you guys started to decide to bring in staff. But can you talk a little bit more about what was that process like, and how did the organization make that shift, and how did you know it was kind of time?
Seriously, we were all working.
We were volunteers.
Yeah, and I felt I was full time, I would say, and and so we raised the money. We would have liked to have staff from the beginning, but that wasn't priority. We had to get it up and running, and so when we could raise enough money, it was that simple. And I mean, I still stayed on as did the exhibitions. That was my role. Deb and Martin stayed on doing design, and we
supporting events. And
we would volunteer for events, but right, kind of big phew when we could hire staff.
Yeah, I think it really was. We always had an eye for growth. For ArtStar being having an impact in the community. And it got to a point where we were doing everything that we could possibly do. I mean, we could not, shoehorn in another task. And if ArtStar was going to grow and become even more significant in the community, we were going to need staff, to move it forward. And we went out and we were able to, raise the money, to hire a person, and we were fortunate in being able to find Melinda, and she was, the right person at the right time. She was looking to come into Rhinelander to be closer to her parents. So I remember, Deb mentioned Lisa Korsmarski, who was a friend of, all of ours, who had worked for the city. And Lisa was a very competent person, but not an art person. She wasn't really had much background in art, but she was such a good administrator that we were ready to hire her. And offer her the position. We had not offered her a position, but we had interviewed her, and between the group, we thought, yeah, we can make this work. And then we interviewed Melinda, and we all changed our mind on the spot, because Melinda had the experience that we were looking for. She had that art background that we were looking for, and the community development.
Yeah, and I want to say this might be a good place to say we couldn't have done this without a host of volunteers. The volunteers would sit the gallery, the gallery assistants, with the events so much. I mean, yes, we were the executive team along with Patty Fitzpatrick and Judy Linder, and, but I mean, the many, many volunteers
Right.
that donated their time and were
Baking,
enthusiastic.
cleaning, decorating, whatever it took.
Yeah,
Doing the mailings, we'd have a crew of 8 or 10 people sitting around the table stuffing envelopes and licking stamps.
Yeah.
I don't know if they did lick stamps. Those were before the self-stick stamps.
And before COVID.
Yeah.
You're right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I just wanted, I would organize the gallery assistants, and that's always a hard thing. Those shifts have to be filled, and we had to step in if for some reason a gallery assistant couldn't come or there was nobody. So there was, that was one of the ways we were being stretched. So when staff came in and could, handle that, that was a big thing off my plate.
And then we were able to get some additional help. Was it Forward Services? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were able to get more help that way. Great. And then, Ashley, it led to you.
Yeah. Yep.
Yay.
So has ArtStart made the impact you intended, or is it still in the process?
Well, I think it's made an amazing impact, but I think hopefully it will always be in a process. I mean, if it stands still, I think it will start to die. So, yeah, both. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying when we were talking about these questions last night over a beer, I said, for me, I moved to Rhinelander in 1993 and left after 25 years. And what I saw over and over again was there was a lot of events. There was the Oktoberfest. There was the duck race. There was this, there was that. And they would do well for a while, and then they wouldn't. And I just thought, this is the kind of town, it's kind of the business end of this area, and we need something permanent. We need something that draws people to that. And when this came up, that was like, this is it. ArtStart, that building, to me, this is it. And not just a town that limits itself to our fine, local artists, and we've had many local artists exhibit in different capacities, but to bring something completely new to this town. And so for me, that's made a huge impact. We're part of the community. People know ArtStart. I mean, I haven't lived there now in a couple of years, but, I mean, to me, it's one of the best things I've ever done personally. I'm so proud of it. I mean, I really, I said when I got involved in something here where I am now in Waterloo, Wisconsin, it's just, we were at meetings and I said, okay, but I'm not doing ArtStart again. I can't, it was a once in a lifetime effort, and it took everything we had.
A lot of energy, a lot of energy.
A lot of heart, a lot of soul, a lot of energy, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of, and Ken, you mentioned about what did you say, cooperation? What was your word?
Collaboration.
Collaboration. That is true out in the community, and it was also true with the executive team. We would argue fiercely for, our points of view, but what worked for us was every single one of us was in service of Art Start. We are not in service of our own egos. And I have rarely, if ever, worked in a group like that. So this was special. This was really special.
Yeah, and unexpected things happen too. Like, we would get performing artists we wouldn't expect because we were very open to them performing what they wanted to perform. So they would love coming here, right? So it was so there was that kind of collaboration as well, because we were very open. Yeah, do your new music. Come on down, right? So just the unexpected things that happen along the way because of that openness and that willingness to collaborate and in service of Art Start.
Yep, and I want to say this was, maybe this has been surpassed now. It was so interesting to me, and here's some unusual events and collaborations, is while I was there, the two events that had the most attendance, one was the story of the Wisconsin Supper Club, where we had celebrity bartender Ted White from Shady Sue's make old fashions that night. And we packed it. That was the number one. But the second was we brought in a man, Stephen Jenkinson, to talk about his film Grief Walker on death and dying. So here we have the one spectrum on one side and the other side. So, but it just speaks to the range of events that we were able to offer the community.
Yeah, for me, I have echo. For me, Art Start is definitely become what I hoped it might become at some point. But the exciting thing is its potential is nowhere near been reached. It's from here, we've grown beyond Rhinelander. We really have. And initially, I just, was thinking of Rhinelander and having impact on Rhinelander and having impact on our community. But Art Start has grown beyond Rhinelander, and we're now known statewide. And I think we will soon be known nationally. And that's something I had not contemplated, I had not thought about, so I suppose you might say it's exceeded expectations.
Ashley, I would write every exhibition for a long time. I would write a letter to the arts editor at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, whatever, and talk about Art Start. And I was never able to crack that nut, and I didn't know why. What other place that in the state, and there's a lot of great places in the state, I'm not saying that, but our little tiny town, we're not funded by big endowments and big corporations, and yet have made this impact in the artists and other, events that we bring. So if you want to keep trying, go. I would like, I don't know, buy you dinner if you got us in the.
Sure, why not?
And you have witnesses.
I know. Yeah. And I have it recorded. So. Okay. Is there anything else you guys wanted to just add, or any last minute memories that you had, or anybody else that you can think of that we should give a shout out to? There's so many people that I can think of that are current volunteers that have helped us on a daily basis, or there's electricians that have helped us, like Gabriel Electric and Shana, when we did our columns, Shana Construction. But is there anybody else that you guys can think of, or any other funny stories that you wanted to throw in real quick?
I would just really emphasize two people that should really be, I don't know, elevated is our Patty Fitzpatrick and Judy Linder. I mean, Patty was out as hours and hours and hours. And, you know, she would do things like, I mean, if like pay for artists' drinks, or she'd take stuff out of her own pocket all the time to make a little gift basket for the Mexican consulate who came up here. What a great story. We got them drunk. That was a great story. We had the Frida Kahlo, Diego Rivera photographic exhibition, and that was pretty darn amazing. They came up here. We had the best time. And that's one of the things, too. The artists are so impressed with us. We take them out to dinner or out for drinks, and we get to know them. And it is was such a great part of this whole experience, you know.
But we're so grateful to all the volunteers. I mean, it would be hard to do a shout out now because there's so many, but definitely Judy and Patty were.
Well, I should say that, you know, for me, it was a sad day when it was time for these three to move south. And I knew at that point in time that Art Start wouldn't be the same. And it's not. It can never be the same, you know, as people move on. But, you know, you laid a great foundation, a wonderful foundation, set standards, which was extremely important, set high standards. And people now who have come in, you know, can use those, you know, in order to, you know, move the organization forward. So I just want to say thanks for everything you've done, and your continued interest and contributions. You know, it's not.
I'm always looking for artists.
Yeah.
Yes, you're always there when I call.
I feel the same way. We feel the same way about you, Ken. This has been really fun. It's sort of like getting the band back together.
It is, yeah. And maybe we don't play guitar quite as well as we used to, but and our voices may be a little bit hoarse, but we still know the moves.
We do, and I'm really looking forward to when you know, this pandemic is under control, as to coming up there again and just getting together and talking smack.
Yep, absolutely. It'll be great. It'll be great. Ash, thanks for putting this together. This was really a great idea. You know, it's wonderful.
And Ashley, I just want to say too, I just remember when you applied, I was like so thrilled. I just felt like I breathed after, because we were leaving, and you know, it was so.
We knew you were another go-getter, and that's just so important. We're so pleased with all the work you've done. So thank you.
Yeah, well, it's been a ride. It's been a fun one. So still here, still enjoying it more than ever. So came along just when I needed it to. So
you know, that happens. You know, organizations find the right people at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, thank you all for joining me and talking about the good old days of Art Start.
And many more to come, I'm sure.
Yep. So we're coming up on 10 years, and just kind of wanted to document, well, we still could think of what it was like.
Yeah, exactly how I feel.
Yeah, and we'll have a big 10-year party of some sort. I don't know what it'll be, but you know, we'll have some sort of a celebration 10 years, and I hope you guys are a big part of it.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
Happy to. I'd love that.
In attendance, you won't have to plan it.
That's funny.
Yay! Yay!
Yep.
All right. Well done.
Big
And
applause.
good to see you. Say hi to Sarah and Chloe. Aw. Okay.
Well, I think this is a wrap.
Okay.
Thank you all so much. Have a great
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, guys.
Okay. Where is that leave?